Okay, we just got a lot of vocab. Let's go ahead and jump into our lesson. We're going to understand some important things about our polynomials. And I'm actually going to jump down to filling in these tables, and then we'll backtrack for the earlier part of this example. So, as we remember from our intro video with the vocab, the degree is the sum of the exponents of your variables, and the degree of an entire polynomial is going to be the term that has that highest sum. So when you have a constant term, there's no variable to have the highest degree of, so we're going to say that the degree is 0 if it's just a constant term with no variables. We're going to talk about why that is in part A above, but right now let's just put 0. And then we can name this polynomial based off of the degree. If the degree is 0, then that is what we call a constant polynomial. All right, our next polynomial is 4x, that is 4x to the first power. So the sum of our exponents of our variables is just a 1. Anytime your degree is 1, that is a linear polynomial. You guys have worked with a lot of linear. All those x's to the first power, those have been linear. And they're called linear because the expression had a degree of 1. All right, our next polynomial has an x squared, an x to the first. If it helps to write the 1 in, go for it. And here's our constant term, which has a degree of 0. So we're looking for the highest degree. In this case, the highest is 2. When polynomials have a degree of 2, we call them a quadratic. You guys are going to have a whole unit on quadratics. We're actually going to dive into those a little bit in this chapter yet, after we get through a few lessons. All right, so here we have, it's a monomial, but if we add the exponents together of our variables, that's going to get us the degree. So 2 plus 1, this polynomial has a degree of 3. Anytime the degree is 3, we call it a cubic polynomial. Now this next one, if we look at the degree of each individual term, add your exponents, we get, this one has a degree of 4. This is an x to the first power, a y to the first power. The 4 is the biggest one, so if the degree is 4, we don't actually have a special name for it. After you get past a degree of 3 for the cubic, we would just call this a 4th degree polynomial. And that's how we would identify polynomials after that. If the degree is 5, it's a 5th degree polynomial. If the degree is 10, it's a 10th degree polynomial. So that's one way that we name polynomials. Another way that we name polynomials is based on how many terms there are. So if there is one term, we call that a monomial. If you have 2 terms, that's called a binomial. You know, a bicycle has 2 wheels, a binomial has 2 terms. If you have 1, 2, 3 terms, it's a trinomial. A tricycle has 3 wheels, a triangle has 3 angles. A trinomial is a polynomial that has 3 terms. All right, then we get to 1, 2, 3, 4. Any number of terms above 3, we just call it a polynomial. Poly means many, so polynomial is just the term that anything above a 3 gets. But if you have 1, 2, or 3 terms, those get special names: monomial, binomial, trinomial. All right, let's jump up to part A. Why does a constant have a degree of 0? We know that the degree is the sum of the exponents of your variables. Well, if you don't have any variables, so let's say we have a 7, there is an x to the 0 power that we could write in. What we want to remember, our 0 product property of exponents, anything raised to the 0 power is equal to 1. So really, this is the same thing as 7 times 1, which is why the only thing that we see is a 7. So any constant term does have a degree, and the degree is just a 0, because this is how, this is another way that we could write that. All right, part B, why is 5x to the third power minus 4 called a cubic binomial? So this cubic tells us the degree, and the binomial tells us the number of terms. So if we look at 5x to the third power, there's our degree of 3. And then that minus 4 on the end, there's 1 term, 2 terms. So cubic, because it has a degree of 3. Binomial, because it has 2 terms. It's a cubic binomial. All right, last two quick questions here. Name each polynomial based on its degree and the number of terms. So let's go ahead and list the degree. So the degree is the sum of your exponents. That's an x to the first and a y squared, 1 plus 2. This has a degree of 3. Anything that's a degree of 3, oh, actually, before we talk about that, how many terms do we have? It has just 1 term. So anything that has a degree of 3 is cubic, and any polynomial that has 1 term is a monomial. So this is a cubic monomial. All right, next we have to identify the degree. So look at each term. This is a y to the first power. So this term has a degree of 1. This term is a constant, so the degree is 0. And then this term has a y squared, so the degree is 2. We're going to take the highest degree of any of those terms, so the degree is 2. And then how many terms do we have? 1, 2, 3. This has 3 terms. So anytime the degree is 2, it's a quadratic. And then when it's 3 terms, it's a trinomial. So this is a quadratic trinomial.